My dad and stepmom quietly swapped out my locks, slipped eviction notices under my door, and schemed to deed my home to my pregnant stepsister, until I uncovered their betrayal, fought back with evidence in hand, and ignited a legal nightmare that shattered their plans and fulfilled their worst fears. I'm a 28-year-old single guy living alone in the house my mom left me when she passed away 5 years ago. It's a simple 3-bedroom home in a quiet neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but it's comfortable. Most importantly, it was my mom's. She spent her whole life working hard for this place, and when she died, she made it clear that it was meant to be my foundation. This house isn't just 4 walls and a roof, it's her legacy. Growing up, my mom was the only stable parent I had. She wasn't perfect, but she showed up every time. My dad, he checked out after the divorce. He got remarried pretty fast, and let's just say his priorities shifted. His new wife took center stage, and her daughter, let's call her Savannah, became the princess of the household. Savannah's 25 now, and she's pregnant. I don't care that she's having a baby. That's not the issue. The problem is she walks through life like the world owes her something. Her mom and my dad have fueled that mindset since we were kids. Whatever Savannah wants, she gets. Cars, trips, random expensive stuff. If she wants it, they make it happen. She's got that spoiled, I want it, so I should have it attitude. I've kept my distance from all of that. I see my dad once in a while, but I've drawn clear lines. My house is my space, my peace, my escape from drama. I got a stable job, good friends, and a chill daily routine. I'm not rich, but I'm doing fine, and in this economy, that's saying something. I live alone, and I like it. No noise, no mess, just calm. After losing my mom, that peace became everything to me. Back to Savannah. A few months ago, her boyfriend, a guy named Tyler, ditched her. No surprise there. He always seemed like the kind who'd run the minute life got hard. But Savannah didn't seem too heartbroken. Word is, she went straight back to her mom and my dad and slipped right into being spoiled again. They cooked for her, bought her baby stuff, treated her like she was made of glass. I didn't think much of it first. That's their problem, not mine. But then out of nowhere, my dad calls and says we need to talk. He doesn't do that often, so I figured something must be up. I head to their house, and the vibe is off the moment I walk in. My dad, his wife, and Savannah are all sitting at the kitchen table. Savannah's rubbing her belly like a reminder she's pregnant, and the small talk starts. Pointless chatter that's clearly just filler. My dad asks how work's going, his wife smiles like she cares, but you can feel it coming. Then they drop it. My dad says Savannah needs somewhere stable to live. Their place is too small with the baby coming. Before I can even respond, his wife jumps in, tone all sweet but firm, saying something like, since you're living alone in that big house and you're not married, it just makes sense for Savannah to move in. She needs the space, and you don't really have anything tying you down. You could easily get a smaller place. It wasn't a question. It was a done deal, like they'd already made the decision and were just waiting for me to nod along. My dad chimed in that they even looked at apartments for me, like that somehow made it more acceptable. I was stunned. It was like they thought my life didn't matter. My house, my mom's house, was just some empty space they could fill whenever it suited them. The entitlement was wild. Like being single and child-free meant my needs didn't count. At first, I thought I must have misunderstood. But no, they were dead serious. They'd clearly been planning this and finally decided to spring it on me. I told them flat out, no, this house isn't just a property. It's my home. It's one of the last things I have for my mom, and the idea of giving it up, especially for someone like Savannah, was just ridiculous. I tried to explain, but they weren't listening. They just kept pushing, throwing out lines like family helps family, and you don't need all that space by yourself. It was like talking to a brick wall. Savannah barely spoke, but her face said it all, smug and self-satisfied, like she already knew I'd give in. That's how it's always been with her. People cave and give her what she wants. At one point, I looked at her and said, Savannah, do you really want to live in my house? My home? Why not take one of those apartments you all looked into? You've already done the work. Why is it too much for you, but totally fine to expect me to give up mine? She blinked like I was speaking a different language, like the idea of her compromising just didn't register. Her mom jumped in again with that fake nice voice, saying, oh, honey, you don't understand. Savannah needs stability. An apartment can't offer the same comfort for her and the baby. I laughed, cold and bitter. So my stability doesn't matter? My comfort doesn't count? You all waltz in here expecting me to just roll over and give up everything for Savannah's sake? Savannah stayed silent, arms crossed, that smug look stuck to her face. She didn't need to speak. She was letting my dad and her mom do all the heavy lifting while she sat there like the queen of the castle. Then her mom said something that really got under my skin. It's not about your comfort. It's about what's best for the family. Savannah is bringing a new life into the world. Don't you think that's more important than you needing space? You're a grown man. You don't need a big house all to yourself. It's selfish to keep it when it could give her and the baby a better start. I just stared at her, stunned by the nerve. Selfish? You think I'm selfish for holding on to the house my mother left me? This isn't just some property. It's my life. I built something here. And now you want me to just hand it over like it means nothing. My dad sighed, clearly annoyed, and tried to soften things. We're not asking you to give it up forever, he said. Just let Savannah stay until she gets on her feet. Once she's stable, maybe she'll move out and you can figure something else out. We're just trying to do what's best for everyone. Everyone. I said, no, you're trying to do what's best for her. Don't dress it up like it's about family. This is about you bending over backward for Savannah, again, and expecting me to fix the mess. Then her mom hit me with that classic guilt line. It's called being part of family. Sometimes we make sacrifices for each other. If your mom were here, I cut her off, my voice cold. Don't bring my mom into this. She left this house to me for a reason. She knew how you all are. That's why none of you are even in her will. So don't sit there and pretend to know what she would have wanted. That shut them up. My dad looked uncomfortable and wandered off. Savannah just sat there, arms crossed, still smug. She didn't argue, didn't try to explain herself, because in her mind, she didn't have to. This wasn't a request. She believed it was already decided. But it's not. Not now. Not ever. It was never a question of if they'd push their agenda, just a matter of when. But this time, they picked the wrong person to mess with. This house isn't up for debate. My mom trusted me with it, and I'm not about to let anyone guilt trip me into handing it over. Still, I knew they weren't done. They left the conversation hanging like they were sure I'd eventually change my mind. But I didn't. I figured maybe they'd cool down and realize how ridiculous they were being after I said no to their faces. But nope, this was just the beginning. My dad and his wife must have thought persistence was the answer. Like if they just kept at it, I'd break. It started with little jabs, passive-aggressive comments here and there. My dad would call and casually ask if I thought more about helping out. His wife started texting me articles about supporting single moms, like that would magically inspire me to hand over my house. Savannah mostly stayed quiet, but I could tell she was confident her mom and my dad would make it happen. Then they raised the stakes. They began showing up uninvited. And it wasn't like they were coming to visit. Every time, it somehow circled back to Savannah and her needs. One time, my dad came over with a box of baby clothes, acting like it was totally normal, and asked where he could store it. I told him he could take it right back to his house. He looked at me like I just kicked a puppy. It's just temporary, he said. You're not even using the guest room. I told him the guest room was for guests, not storage. He grumbled, but took the box back to his car. That pretty much set the tone. Every time they came up with some solution that involved me giving up space, I shut it down. And honestly, it was clear they didn't see me as the real owner of the house. To them, it was just this convenient space they felt entitled to use. My mom left it to me, but they acted like it was a shared resource, like I'd just been holding onto it for Savannah until she needed it. What pissed me off most was how they twisted the story to make it seem like I was the selfish one. Like I was hoarding all this space out of spite. It wasn't enough that I said no. I had to keep explaining myself to people who never actually wanted to listen. Things really blew up when Savannah decided to jump in more directly. One afternoon, she pulled in my driveway, popped her trunk, and casually asked me to help her unload a stroller. I just stared at her, stunned. Why are you bringing a stroller here? I asked. Well, where else am I supposed to put it? I don't have room right now, she said. I was trying to wrap my head around how bold she was being. Not my problem, I replied, already feeling the anger boil up. That set her off. She launched into a rant about how I was making her life harder, acting like her struggles were somehow my responsibility. Family is supposed to stick together, she said, like that was a free pass to dump her issues on me. Then she added, you don't understand how stressful this is. You have no idea what it's like to be pregnant. Her tone made it clear she thought I was clueless about real life. She was right about one thing. I don't know what it's like to be pregnant, but I do know what it's like to have responsibilities. And unlike her, I've been handling mine without expecting everyone else to clean up after me. I sure as hell don't assume I can take over someone else's house just because I don't have enough space. So I told her straight up, your problems aren't mine to fix. And I'm not flipping my life upside down just because you refuse to get yours together. That didn't go over well. Her face twisted into this look like I just told her the earth revolved around the sun, and she wasn't the sun. She stormed off in a huff, but not before throwing out one last gem. You're going to regret this someday. The irony wasn't lost on me. She's been spoiled and catered to her entire life, and the first time someone tells her no, she acts like they're the problem. She really thought she could roll up with a stroller and just move in like it was already hers, and I was some speed bump in her plan. But they didn't stop. They just kept pushing. One day, my dad came by with a realtor without even telling me. I was sitting in my living room when I heard the knock. Opened the door, and there he was, standing with some woman holding a clipboard. Thought we could look at some options for you, he said. I didn't even let them inside. I told him to leave and slammed the door. That was it for me. That crossed every line. It wasn't just about the house anymore. It was the principle. They thought they could manipulate and bully me the way they always had with Savannah. But I'm not her. I don't cave. That night, I called a security company and scheduled cameras for the property. It wasn't a huge step, but it was something. I needed to protect what was mine. I didn't feel safe anymore, not just physically, but emotionally. I kept imagining some new scheme to try and get me kicked out or legally shoved aside. And I knew damn well they weren't going to stop unless they hit a wall they couldn't climb. So I became that wall. I stopped playing nice. No more conversations. No more maybe later. I was done. And, just like I expected, they came up with something even more insane. I came home from work one night, totally drained, just wanting peace. But when I tried to put my key in the door, it wouldn't fit. For a second, I thought maybe I grabbed the wrong one. But after a few tries, I realized what had happened. The locks had been changed. My heart dropped. I felt this wave of shock and anger all at once. And then I saw it. A folded piece of paper taped to the door. It read, "We've changed the locks for safety. Please contact us to discuss this." Signed by my dad. The audacity was unreal. I didn't waste time. I pulled out my phone and called him. He answered after a few rings, sounding completely calm, like this wasn't the most outrageous thing he'd ever done. "What the hell is going on?" I asked, barely holding it together. "Why are the locks on my house changed?" "It's temporary," he said, like that made it okay. "We're just trying to help Savannah. You've been so difficult, and we thought maybe this would make things smoother for everyone." "For everyone?" I snapped. "You mean for you and Savannah? You've crossed every single line. This is trespassing. If you think I'm going to let this slide, you've lost your mind." His tone shifted instantly. He started begging, "Please don't call the cops. Don't escalate this. It'll look bad for the family." "Look bad for the family?" I shot back. "You really think that's what I care about right now?" I laid it out for him, plain and simple. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to call whoever changed those locks and fix it immediately, or I will call the police, and I will press charges for trespassing and attempted theft." He paused. For a second, I thought he might try to argue, but then he must have realized I wasn't bluffing because he finally backed off. "Okay, fine. We'll fix it, but you're being so unreasonable. We're just trying to do what's best for Savannah and the baby. This was only supposed to be temporary." I didn't respond to his attempt to guilt trip me. I just said, "You have until the end of the day to fix this, or I'm calling the police." That's not up for discussion. After more mumbling and half-hearted excuses, he finally agreed. I hung up without another word, hands trembling with anger. This wasn't just another push of boundaries. It was a calculated move to take something that wasn't theirs. A total violation of my space, my boundaries, and my trust. A few hours later, the locksmith came back, and the locks were changed again. My dad didn't show, and neither did Savannah or her mom. I stood at the door the entire time, watching every step to make sure nothing was missed. Once everything was back the way it should be, I sat in the living room, staring at the walls of the house that had suddenly turned into a battleground. This wasn't about guilt or pressure anymore. It was a declaration of war. I knew then that things weren't going to calm down on their own. If they were willing to go this far, who knew what they'd try next? But if they thought I was just going to let them bulldoze me, they were in for a rude awakening. That night, I stayed up late digging through paperwork and making calls. I was determined to make sure there was no way they could pull something like this again. What really shocked me, though, was how normal they acted about all of it, like they were actually entitled to my house. It didn't matter to them that my mom left it to me, or that I'd lived there for years. To them, it was just property, something they thought they could grab if they pushed hard enough. That's when I started looking into legal action. I met with my lawyer and told him everything, how my dad and stepmom had been pressuring me constantly, how they even changed the locks behind my back. He listened carefully, asking direct questions about the house, my mom's will, and if there had been any strange behavior from my dad recently. At first, I thought he was just being thorough, but then he leaned back and said, "There's something you need to know. Your dad has already asked about contesting your mom's will." I was stunned. "What do you mean contesting it?" He explained that while my dad hadn't officially filed anything, he did meet with a lawyer to explore whether he could claim the house as family property instead of it being my inheritance. Basically, he was trying to find a loophole, any angle he could use to take control of the house. I sat there frozen. All this time, while pretending to support me, or at least try to act neutral, he was secretly plotting to take what my mom had left me. This wasn't something Savannah suddenly came up with. They had been planning it for months, long before the pressure to move out even started. My lawyer added quickly, probably seeing the panic on my face, "He doesn't have a solid case. Your mom's will is very clear. The house is yours, period." Still, the fact that my dad had even considered going down that path said everything. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was something he thought out. All the manipulation, the guilt trips, the emotional games, it all clicked. This wasn't about helping Savannah. It was about trying to take what wasn't theirs. That realization made my blood boil. I wasn't just defending my space anymore. I was defending what my mom worked her whole life to give me. Every move they made felt like a slap in her face, and I wasn't going to let that go. No matter how far they pushed or how twisted things got, I wasn't backing down. This house is mine, and they're not taking it. So here's the first update. After speaking to my lawyer, I couldn't stop thinking about every conversation I'd had with my dad over the last few months. I knew I couldn't just avoid him and proceed through legal channels. I had to confront him face to face. I didn't call or text. I just showed up at his house unannounced, just like he and his wife had done to me so many times. When he opened the door, he looked shocked, totally unprepared. But what hurt the most was that he didn't even seem guilty. Not a flicker of shame. I need to know why you were looking into contesting Mom's will, I said, cutting straight to the point. His face shifted into that classic mix of confusion and defense. What are you talking about? He asked, pretending like he had no idea. I don't know where you got that from, but it's not true. Don't lie to me, I said sharply. I already know you talked to a lawyer months ago. So tell me, what exactly were you planning to do? It wasn't like that, he stammered. I wasn't trying to take anything. I just wanted to see what the options were for the family. For the family? I repeated, disbelief dripping from my voice. Let's be honest. This isn't about the family. It's about Savannah. Don't act like it's not. He snapped back. I wasn't planning anything. I was just looking at possibilities. That house is too big for you anyway. Savannah needs a stable home for her baby. And that means stealing mine? I shot back, my frustration bubbling over. You didn't even ask for my help. You went behind my back and tried to manipulate me. And now you're acting like you did me a favor. It wasn't like that. He mumbled again, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. He looked everywhere else, the way he always did when he knew he was wrong, but didn't want to admit it. I waited, hoping he'd say something, anything, that might justify this. But he didn't, so I shook my head and walked away. There was nothing left to say to someone who couldn't even own up to what he'd done. That conversation confirmed everything. I couldn't trust him. He wasn't acting like a father. He was acting like someone who thought my life, my house, and my choices were his to control just because they didn't fit his idea of how things should be. Back home, I called my lawyer again to figure out the next steps. He reassured me the will was solid, that legally I had nothing to worry about. But I knew this wasn't just a legal battle. It was psychological warfare. They wanted to wear me down until I gave up and handed everything over just to stop the stress. The next few weeks were exhausting. Constant meetings, emails, and double-checking everything. I filed every piece of paperwork I could have locked the house down in my name, no loopholes. I upgraded my security system, added more cameras, and even paid for title protection just in case they tried something shady. It felt like I was building a fortress. And honestly, that's exactly what it was. Meanwhile, Savannah ramped things up. She started posting vague stuff online about being abandoned by family and how she had to fight for what's right. She never mentioned me directly, but anyone who knew the situation could read between the lines. People started messaging me, asking what was going on and if there was a way to work it out. I kept my responses short and to the point. I wasn't playing her game, and I definitely wasn't airing my side online. But slowly, their campaign started to fall apart. The legal bills on their end were stacking up, and my lawyer said they were running out of options. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't over. People like that don't just give up. They wait, regroup, and try again when you least expect it. By the time things finally calmed down, I was completely drained. Fighting for my home, my peace, and my boundaries took everything I had. But it was worth it. This wasn't just about a house. It was about standing my ground and refusing to let anyone steamroll me. My dad and Savannah thought they could guilt me into submission, but they were so wrong. If anything, this whole mess just showed me exactly who they are. And I'm never forgetting it. I'm starting to think that cutting ties might be the only real way to move forward. Things are quiet for now, but I'm not naive. If they try anything again, I'll be ready. If something changes, I might come back with another update. Thanks for sticking with me and listening. If you got advice or just want to share some support, I'd love to hear it. Hey guys, I want to give you an update on everything that's happened since my last post. It's been a roller coaster, but I finally feel like I'm coming out the other side. I'm still in my house, thankfully, and it's staying that way. Let me explain. After they tried every trick in the book to get me out, they eventually backed off. Weeks passed, then months. It got eerily quiet. No calls, no texts, no surprise visits from Savannah or her mom. It felt odd, like maybe they were regrouping, but I wasn't about to complain about the peace and quiet. During that time, Savannah had her baby, a healthy little boy, from what I heard through the grapevine. I figured maybe they were too wrapped up in the baby to keep bothering me. Or maybe they had finally given up. Then one evening, I heard a knock. I checked the security cameras, and there they were, my dad, his wife, and Savannah, all standing there like they were about to stage some kind of intervention. I thought about ignoring it, but curiosity got the better of me, so I opened the door just to hear what kind of story they had this time. Right away, my dad's wife jumped into her usual routine. She said they'd been thinking things over and wanted to move forward as a family. She went on about letting go of the past and said they were offering me one last chance to make things right. Then Savannah chimed in, holding her baby like a prop. She talked about how tough things had been for her, how she wanted her child to be surrounded by family, and how she still believed I could do the right thing if I just opened my heart. Same manipulation, just with a prettier presentation. My dad, always trying to play the peacemaker, went with the classic family is more important than material things line and told me I needed to see the bigger picture. I let them talk, mostly out of morbid curiosity. When they were finally done, I took a breath and told them, calmly, this is my house. My mom left it to me, and I'm not giving it up. I've told you before, and I'll tell you again. The answer is no. I don't care how you spin it or what speeches you've rehearsed. You're not getting the house. That's final. That should have ended things. But of course it didn't. Savannah's mom immediately flipped out, shouting about how selfish I was. She accused me of choosing material things over family, claiming I was abandoning my responsibilities. She threw out every guilt trip she could think of, trying to paint me as the villain. Savannah followed her lead, crying and saying I was making her life harder. She told me I'd regret this someday, as if I'd wake up one day wishing I'd let them walk all over me. My dad didn't say much. He just stood there watching, not even trying to step in or calm things down. I think, deep down, he finally realized how far this had gone. I wasn't in the mood for another shouting match. I looked at them and said, you've already crossed every line I had. You've lied, manipulated, and tried to take what's mine. And now you show up here acting like the victims? I'm done. Get off my property. But of course, they didn't leave. Savannah's mom kept going, insisting I was being unreasonable and trying to guilt me into backing down. Savannah threw in comments about how families should stick together and call me heartless for not stepping up. My dad finally spoke again, but all he said was another weak plea for me to be reasonable and see their side. I didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. I turned around, walked back inside, and locked the door behind me. I wasn't bluffing. I'd had enough. I called the police and explained what was happening. The dispatcher said an officer would be on the way. I waited by the window, watching them hang around in my driveway, still talking among themselves. When the cops arrived, they had moved off the porch but weren't trying to leave. The officers talked to them for a bit, and from what I could tell, made it very clear they had to go. The police weren't buying into their excuses. They told them to leave and not come back. Watching them finally drive off, with the police making sure they did, felt like a small victory. But it also marked the end of whatever relationship I had left with my dad. As I sat down, trying to gather my thoughts, I realized how drained I was. They had taken so much, my energy, my time, and even my sense of safety in my own home. But even with all that, I knew I'd done the right thing. Setting boundaries with people like that isn't just healthy, it's survival. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't just done with the house drama. I was done with them entirely. I blocked their numbers, unfollowed them online, and made sure mutual friends knew not to pass along messages or updates. Cutting them off was hard at first, but when I looked back at everything they'd done, I knew there was nothing left to salvage. They didn't care about me or my boundaries. They only cared about what I could give them. Instead of leaning on a toxic family, I leaned on my friends. They'd been there for me through all the chaos, reminding me I wasn't crazy for standing up for myself. One of them suggested I throw a housewarming party, not because the house was new, but because I'd fought so hard to keep it. The idea made me laugh, but also made sense. So I did it. It was a small gathering, just a few close friends. But it was perfect. For the first time in a long time, I felt genuinely happy. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was thriving. Looking back, I'm proud of how I handled everything. It wasn't easy. There were moments I wanted to give up, but I didn't. I stood my ground. I proved to myself that I'm stronger than I ever thought. This house isn't just where I live. It's a symbol of everything I've fought for, my independence, my strength, and my willingness to stand up for myself, even when it's hard. If I've learned anything, it's that family isn't about blood. It's about respect, trust, and mutual support. If someone can't give you those things, they don't deserve a place in your life, no matter who they are. So, if you're going through something like this, stand your ground. Set your boundaries. Don't let anyone guilt you into crossing them. You don't owe anyone your peace, your stability, or your happiness. I moved on from all of it now. I still live in my house. And every time I walk through the door, I'm reminded of what I've overcome. It's not just a house, it's my home. And I'm not letting anyone take that away from me.